I am your host, Carrie Scollon, giving us different perspectives on where we are and where we want to go on our journey. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the FoundHer Series podcast. I have a special guest on here today. I have Genna Nelson. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner, and she's coming all the way from, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and share where you're from.
So hi, everyone. My name's Genna. I'm coming to you today from just outside Edinburgh in Scotland. So as we've already found out, my accent is quite strong. I roll my R's, so I'll try to speak as slowly and clearly as possible. If not, Carrie can translate for me.
Yes. Yeah, we've already had that quick discussion before we came on, was that if I didn't clarify anything, I wanted to make sure that Genna didn't get offended when I didn't really
Not at all.
understand a word.
No.
So we're going to dive in. We are both very similar in the way that we just want to see how this rolls out. I love what you do. I was introduced to you by a good friend of mine. So that introduction is always a great place to start, because there's always a bit of trust already, when you've been introduced by somebody that you know well. So I am thrilled to have you on. I'm not super familiar with the term nutritional therapy practitioner. So I would love it if you could kind of narrow down for us in a simplified version of what it is actually that is, what that means to you, and what you do in that practice.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, nutritional therapy is looking at a person holistically. Mm-hmm. So I often don't resonate with the nutrition part of the title, because it implies it's about the food, and it is, but it's not all of it. So holistically means looking at a person's environment. So how much stress is in their life, how well do they sleep, what their diet is like, what support they have at home, are there any things going on in their life? So it's looking at the whole picture, because all of those factors can influence a person's health. So, we could be eating all the kale and green juicing all we want, but if we've got stress at work and we're not sleeping well and we're using coping mechanisms such as alcohol, caffeine, medications, overtraining, over-exercising, which are all coping mechanisms, they all put a tremendous amount of stress on the body. And nothing in the body works in isolation. All the systems of the body work. They've all got an interplay between each other. So if one system is struggling and out of balance, it has a knock-on effect with the other systems. So holistically means looking at everything, and nutritional therapy is root causes. So our medical system in the Western world looks at symptoms. So what nutritional therapy does is it gets underneath that. So we want to know why. Why are these symptoms emerging in this person? I don't diagnose, treat, or cure. I support and optimize. I support my clients.
It sounds like you're in the prevention part as well.
Absolutely.
Like get ahead of it before it becomes...
And that isn't our paradigm at the moment. I'm an idealist. I would love our paradigm to shift to this preventative model, but we're not there yet. So we have a medical system that treats an ill with a pill, basically, and it doesn't empower the person to look at why are these symptoms. So one of the most common ones is like acid reflux or indigestion. So patients get put on proton pump inhibitors, which suppress stomach acid.
Okay.
For long-term health, that's one of the worst things you can do, because you need stomach acid to digest your food, to fight off viruses, bacteria. We need really good stomach acid. So if we're doing things that are suppressing the natural things that happen in our body, we're sort of collecting all these problems for future ill health further down the line.
Right.
So if we could move to a preventative model, that would be amazing, but we are not there yet. So my role is to educate and empower people so that they can start to see the connections in their own health and start to take that power back. And if they do need to work with their GP, they can work with someone like me. I can work alongside their doctor, and help, be that bridge for the patient client with the doctor. So it's about awareness.
That's such a great combination, because there's a place for both, right?
Absolutely.
And when you were speaking there, it made me think of I have been going to a chiropractor since I can remember. And the way that was even explained to me was, our bodies are so incredible, and our spine, and the way, if there's one little thing that is out of alignment, our body can't work to the amazing potential that it has, right? Yeah. So that just made total sense for me. I needed that visual, like, okay, I need to keep everything in a line so that it can do its job and work the way it's supposed to work. So I love how you're talking about that, where it is sleep, it is nutrition, it is, everything. You need it all.
You do. And the human body is phenomenal, as you said, and the human body is always striving for what we call homeostasis. So that's balance. It's always looking, and it will down-regulate less important systems in the body to protect the more important. So it's always your brain always needs protected, your heart, your lungs.
Right.
But your digestion will shut down. So if someone is stuck in fight or flight, so they're stuck in that sympathetic dominance, there's a lot of stress in their life. They've learned this, response to stress is now ingrained in their body. They could end up with something like IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease, not celiac disease, but anything gut related, because the body is prioritizing something further upstream. So it's going to shut down digestion. So then you start to see that link with, there's the acid reflux, there's the indigestion, because there's not enough stomach acid, because there's a lot of stress. So everything the body does has a purpose.
So that's where you get to, is getting to the root of the
absolutely
issue. So for somebody I know that a lot of what your practice is made up of is a lot of, you probably help men as well. I'm just going on the women aspect of it right now. Do you do both?
Absolutely. Both? Yeah.
Okay. And we touched a little bit on this before we started recording, but we don't really like to label ourselves as a certain type. So high achiever, overachiever, type A, but that's actually a lot of the people that you work with.
Yeah.
So they come to you with symptoms like you said, like fatigue or brain fog, or what are some of the symptoms that they come and go, I need some help with this?
Yeah.
And then when you get underneath, you're like, this is where we need to focus. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, those two. So definitely fatigue, brain fog, gut dysregulation, so things like IBS, bloating, weight gain, so unexplained weight gain. That's a big one, particularly for women. Where they're like, well, my diet and my lifestyle is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Why am I suddenly piling on weight? And it's weight around the middle, and they find that difficult to shift. Stress, not sleeping right, not feeling as though when they wake up that they're fully refreshed. Yeah. Sudden intolerances to foods just out of nowhere that they didn't have prior. Headaches, hair loss is a big one. So hair falling out, skin issues, you name it.
So much of what you just said sounds like a lot of what I was going through and I'm going through. And a lot of that I've realized was perimenopause, menopause. That seemed to do a lot of changes in my body. I had things before that, but it almost heightened it.
And it will, because of the changes that are happening so rapidly in terms of hormones that are fluctuating up and down and changing hour by hour. Those symptoms that were maybe just under the surface that you maybe just didn't notice suddenly become huge and front and center, and you notice them, they're more apparent. But I like to think that they're like red flags. So they're being flagged up because your body wants you to pay attention, to do something about it. And it's knowing what to do. That's the challenge for a lot of people, because there's so much information, so much confusion, particularly around menopause and perimenopause. There's a lot of conflicting information. So I like to simplify it and work with each person at an individual level, which is what nutritional therapy does, is it personalizes that approach for that person. So you're not getting a blanket protocol that worked for Sally down the street. That worked for Sally, but that doesn't maybe work for you. So it's personalized and unique to you and bespoke to you, and moves at the pace that you want to move at as well.
It just sounds like, everybody's individual. So how one thing isn't going to work for everybody. So I think that's what really resonates with me to you, is that you do go down those levels. And for me, starting this process, it's just overwhelming to me. It's overwhelming. Every time I hear something, it's like, eat kale, don't eat kale. That hurts your stomach lining. It's really good for you. I'm just like, there comes a point where I just want to shut it all off. Yeah.
I start with what, so I always start with what foods my clients love and what foods they hate, because that gives me a really strong place to start from, because I'm not going to try and make someone eat kale, for example, like you say, who has a complete aversion to it. It's pointless. So start with what my clients like and build from that. So I'll take their 3 favorite meals, for example, and then we'll try and tweak them. Can we make them? Can we improve them? Can we just work with what we've got? My clients are women, as you mentioned. They're busy women. They're running their own businesses. They're time poor. They're juggling lots of plates, lots of things going on. I don't want to add to that. So I want to simplify what is quite complicated and overwhelming. It doesn't need to be. And help them to recognize where they could prioritize themselves better. Because for me, that's a lot of the root reason that stress and anxiety starts to manifest, is that we are not very good at putting ourselves first.
Totally.
I speak for myself, but and a lot of clients that I've worked with, we've not been shown how to do that, how to prioritize ourselves, because there's messaging around be kind and help others and do the right thing. That's great if you're given from a full cup, but most of us aren't. We're given from an empty cup. So that energy that we are barely surviving on, if we're giving that to someone else, we've nothing then to run on. And we can see, and I've experienced this myself, clients heading into burnout. So burnout isn't a recognised medical term. Your doctor will never say, oh yeah, you're in burnout.
Right.
They don't like it. So the only medical term that relates to that is chronic fatigue, or Addison's, where you've got complete adrenal failure. But if you're at that stage, you're not coming to me. You're working with someone specifically for that. So I like to catch the clients who are on the road to what we would call chronic fatigue, which is complete bed-bound behaviour. So that person cannot get out of bed. They cannot care to their own needs. They've usually got a carer that comes in and looks after them. So these types of clients that are experiencing signs of burnout, which is what we've touched on, if they continue to ignore those red flags, they inevitably will tip into a burnout situation. So I like to use the analogy of the cargo ship. If you can visualize it, that cargo ship is overladen with cargo. So these are all the areas of our lives, so our jobs, our families, finances, health, parents, everything, all the factors that make us who we are. And then suddenly you need to jump on a long haul flight for a trip from Canada to Europe or to Australia. You've got a long haul flight, or you catch a virus, or suddenly there's a stressful situation. So there's an extra additional load on that already overloaded cargo ship, and it just tips the cargo ship over. That's burnout. That's when you end up in bed and you can't get out of bed.
Yes.
So I've had a number of people say, oh yeah, I've had burnout. And I like to reframe it for them. No, you haven't. You haven't had burnout.
Yeah.
You've experienced the road towards that. You would know if you'd had burnout, you wouldn't be out of bed. And that's a completely different protocol. So for me, this is really important to catch the types of people who could so easily just push the red flags away. Just ignore them. Just ignore the headache, ignore the fatigue. Just keep drinking your caffeine, keep drinking alcohol to unwind, help you sleep better, just to cope better. But if you keep pushing those things away, at some point they will pop back up.
It'll catch up with you, right?
In a bigger way, in a much bigger way. Yeah.
Yes. And it's we live in a world where we talked about sometimes it's a badge of honor to be so busy.
Yes.
I don't have time for that. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, this is happening. This is happening. But do you feel that? I feel that there's a bit of a shift happening, and it could have been in 2020 when everybody was forced to slow down. I think that was a time for me where it was like I was given permission to just, and it was very good for me. I mean, I'm not saying that was good for a lot of people. It's even hard to admit that, but for me, I just found it so like the world needed this to just come back to what's important and slow ourselves down. And I think we all got a bit of a taste of that. So now when we start to get busy again, we're like, whoa. I don't want to be that anymore. Yeah. So we're recognizing, we're more aware of those signs in our body that are telling us to slow down or take that break or step away from that relationship, or that job is actually, not good for your mental health or whatever. Do you feel that in your practice? You're finding more people that are like, no, I want to tackle this. I want to stop it, or before it gets too overwhelming that I can't handle it.
Yeah, 100%. And that was my journey too. So I was in corporate world. So from the age of 17, I worked in office jobs and worked my way up. And I was always in a support role. So everybody else's safe pair of hands, always, fixing things for other people, crisis management. Mm-hmm. And that's what tipped me into that, what I would call functional burnout. So I didn't tip into full-on adrenal fatigue where I couldn't get out of bed. It's functional burnout. So I still had some amount of energy to get up and go, but I was going to a job that I didn't like. I didn't enjoy it. So when lockdown happened, for me, that job was then in my house. So my house was my safe place, my sanctuary. Yes. And then suddenly my laptop is sat on my kitchen table and my colleagues can see right into my house. So all of that, and then it brought up all this stuff that I was burying. All my stuff came up. Yeah. And that, for me, culminated in anxiety, and then I had a panic attack, which I'd never had before. And everything I'd learned at nutrition school, I'd just thrown out the window. I was in survival mode.
Right.
Yeah, I do see a lot of this. I can see the similarities with the clients that I work with. And we were all put into this forced pause where all the distractions were taken away. We couldn't go out for dinner. We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't do the things that we probably used to distract ourselves. Yeah. And we were just left with ourselves at home.
Yes. And it can be very scary for some people.
I do think it was either a make or break situation for people. Some people have come out of it better. Some people have not come out of it any better.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
But I'm a great believer in things happen for us, not to us. And it's about recognizing, how do I navigate this? What tools do I need? What do I need to learn? So I, as I say, I'd thrown all my nutrition knowledge out the window, and I had to piece by piece pull all that back in. Yeah. And I remembered the training that I'd done around chronic fatigue, and that the personality part about not labeling people, but the A-type personality, the high achiever, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, all of that is what I was doing in my job, and it was burning me out.
Yeah.
And those were the red flags that came up for me. And it came to a culmination point where I left. I had the pain of staying was far worse than the unknown of leaving. So I had to go. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's single-handedly the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, I know. And it's not an easy decision to make.
No,
there are a lot of people that stay in those situations for necessity. I mean, they don't have the option. But if they have to stay, at least gain some tools.
Yes.
To help make that situation as best as it can be.
Yeah.
Right. The
biggest tool, is awareness. Most of us are walking around unaware of how even our physical symptoms relate to what we're feeling. Yes. If we're not feeling what we're feeling, and then our body's throwing these red flags up, then there's something to work with there. You don't have to leave your job. You don't have to leave your marriage. You don't have to leave the country. You don't have to do these big things. You start with small changes. And that's where I like to meet my clients, with the small changes, which lead to probably bigger changes further down the line. But we don't start with them. Because,
well, again, because that'd be overwhelming.
Yeah.
For somebody like me who just dabbles a little bit in, I've had a lot of symptoms and red flags along the way, and I've chosen to just, okay, it's fine, I'm fine, it'll be fine. I thank gosh I finally stopped taking Advil for the headaches and it was just something that I just did it because it masked the pain. My head didn't hurt anymore when I did that, but I wasn't getting to the root of it. But I needed just some smaller steps, like all of these things that you probably share, we all know. Yeah. Just don't do them.
And they get in the way, right? Yeah. So the headaches that you mentioned, really. There's headaches in the way. I need to go out and do my thing today. So what's the quickest way to get rid of this headache? That's and the root causes might be that you didn't sleep well the night before. Yeah. Your blood sugar's dysregulated, you're dehydrated, or all three combined. Yeah. But until somebody takes a holistic case history from you, which is what I would do. And I go right back to when you were born. I want to know, were you a regular birth? Were you a C-section baby?
Really?
Breastfed you? All of these things build a timeline for a person. And one of the biggest questions for someone to ask themselves is, when was the last time that you felt well? And then what happened? Because that's usually a defining moment. So for some people, it could be a virus, or the vaccinations, or a bout of stress, chronic stress, and then they never quite recovered. So there'll be a line in the sand moment, and that's really what we're looking for. And then I like to get under that, because the coping mechanisms, so the caffeine, the alcohol, the oversleeping at the weekend. So people who are very, very busy in their businesses, their jobs through the week, do they then oversleep at the weekend? So that's a sign that you need to catch up on that sleep, but you're using it as a coping mechanism to keep going, to keep pushing. Yep. Your body's throwing up these red flags to say, hey, listen, there's something to pay attention to here.
Yes, and we just choose to ignore them. So, okay, so I love what you do. I love all the sounds of all of this. I just feel like you take a person, you meet them where they're at, like, where are you at right now? But then you go through a process, obviously. Like you said, I didn't realize you would go back to Earth. Like, that's incredible. But you see all the things that have happened to get them to where they are right now. Mm-hmm. And then you go from there, right? So
we're building a holistic picture, and a lot of it we're making sort of best guesses. We can't say for certain why things have manifested, but we're looking for clues, root causes, and then we're looking for triggers and drivers as well. Right. So a trigger could be a stressful event, but then that also becomes a driver, right? So you've somehow adapted to that stress, but then that stress is driving something, which is then creating more symptoms, gut issues, headaches, migraines.
And the triggers are something that I've learned in my in my coaching practice as well, is that we need those. We need those because then we become aware of what it is that why we're reacting in our body or why we're reacting outwardly. So triggers has always been a word that, people use, and it's quite a negative term, like, oh, that triggered me, or that. It's like, oh no, that's a good thing. Like, we need those triggers so that we know what we can do to change it.
Yeah, we all have a blind spot. We can't have full 360-degree vision. We all have a blind spot. And I think for a lot of people, me included, those red flags, those symptoms that are popping out is our blind spot. It's the area that we've just conveniently just tucked away because, I don't quite know what to do with that, or that's just too much to look at right now. Or the classic one for the types of clients that I work with is I don't have time. I'm far too busy for that.
Yeah.
But if you don't make time for your health, you'll be forced to make time for your illness further down the line. So why not take control of it now? Educate yourself now. You don't have to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist.
Right.
Even as that is, how well can you feel? And for a lot of people, just a 10% gain on where they are now is enough.
Yes. Okay. So I want to, I didn't prepare you for anything. So I'm sure you've got something, but for people to take away, so people to listen to this, what are some of the things that I know it's individual, but are there some things that you focus on for everybody that is the same? Yeah.
So there's 3 key things for people who are experiencing fatigue. So fatigue's one of those things that most people go to their doctor for, but they don't actually get a resolution because there's multiple causes and root reasons, So the top one for me with every client that I work with is looking at blood sugar regulation, because most of us are on some kind of blood sugar high and low. So our blood sugar is like a crazy off the rails roller coaster. So an example of that is you might break your fast in the morning with like Cocoa Pops, Shreddies, something really sugary, carbohydrate dense. It doesn't fill you up. It immediately spikes your blood sugar. But what then happens is because it spikes your blood sugar so high, you crash really low within about half an hour to an hour. Right. At that low point, you're not making good choices.
Right.
Put it that way. You are making poor choices because your brain is seeking the glucose at that point because it's running off glucose. So you'll make poorer choices. You won't be able to think straight. So there'll be brain fog, fatigue, irritable, that jangly, jittery feeling. At that point, someone could maybe reach for a coffee or a cookie or whatever it is. So more carbohydrates, more sugar, spike your blood sugar again, and then you crash. So that cycle repeats all through the day. And then they are potentially using alcohol in the evening to wind down.
Right.
There's no nothing against alcohol, but when you're using it to manage something, it then becomes something that you can become addicted to because you're using it to manage a state. So that blood sugar control needs to be leveled out so that there's a more gradual increase and a gradual decrease in insulin levels. So I would work with a client on making sure they've got a really good protein-dense breakfast. Yeah. We would talk about potentially doing some intermittent fasting, but once they're at a point where there's some education around blood sugar, how to maintain it, we'd make sure they're properly hydrated, protein at every meal to balance out the blood sugar. We would prioritize sleep, and I would encourage clients to take their sleep as seriously as they do their nutrition.
Wow.
Sleep is paramount. It's where we do our recovery.
Yes.
If we've been full on all day using our brains and our bodies, and then we rest in the evening, we want to go into that deep, deep sleep so the brain clears out, the lymph system clears out, digestion does what it needs to do.
Huge priority. And there's a lot of things out there that can help us with our sleep that I mean, I guess you have to find that stuff, but the temperature of your room, the darkness of your room, even I've just recently heard that eye masks are huge for helping you with your sleep. Again, probably all these things are trial and error, like try to see if it works for you, but whatever. But sleep's got to be, I've always thought that as a parent, we have 3 daughters when they were all young, but sleep was my number one priority for them because they were rarely sick. Like all of that to me had to do with a good sleep routine.
Yeah.
For their whole system.
That for me feeds back into the types of clients that I work with is they don't prioritize sleep. So they're running their own businesses. So they're usually up very early if they've got a young family, seeing the kids off to school, and then they're cramming their work and they don't stop for lunch. They work through lunch. They might stop for their evening meal where they see their family and have family time. And then they're right back into working again, and they're working to midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And that's fine in the odd occasion where you have to do that to meet a deadline. But if that becomes your normal, that then resets your cycle within your body. And your body then, it has to adapt to that.
Yeah.
And that then has a knock-on effect for the hormone systems, the things that control how tired you are. So when you get to bed, there's that saying, tired and wired. So you're lying there like, I need to sleep, but I can't fall asleep because your brain is still ticking away. So doing things like blue light blocking glasses. So if you have to work in the evening, if you're on your laptop, what can you do to mitigate the impact of that blue light? So can you buy a cheap pair of blue light blocking glasses? So fasting is a tool that I use. So I don't eat after a certain point in the evening. So my digestion's starting to do what it needs to do. And I'm then not spiking my blood sugar levels right before I go to sleep, which is putting me in the right state to fall asleep. Alcohol, which we've touched on, alcohol stops you falling into that deep restorative sleep.
Okay.
So it's the awareness part. So sleep, blood sugar balance, and the third one is possibly getting some testing done on thyroid and adrenals, and vitamin D levels, which is something that I talk to my clients here in Scotland about because of where we are, our terrible weather, our lack of summer. We don't get the sunshine that we need to make the vitamin D in our body. So having someone test their levels and then they can supplement to bring them up to the point where they should be, because we need vitamin D at an adequate level to support your immune system, especially as we head into the winter time. Right. If you've not had an adequate amount of sunshine during the summer, which unfortunately Scotland hasn't, it's rained for most of summer. So, we need to supplement as we head into the darker evenings. So those are the key things.
So all of these things, like when you're just describing them there, these are totally doable.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. This is not a big overwhelming and I also how you go about things to keep it simple, right? Keep it simple.
Start where you are. It could be for someone where they start is they just make sure they drink minimum a litre of water a day. Right. That's all they do. Just no more complicated than that. That's just
focus on that.
Yeah. And what we know about habit building is it builds esteem. So you feel good about yourself. You're like, oh yeah, I've done a whole week. I've drank a litre of water. I might do 2 litres next week. And then you start to build on that. And then you feel less sleepy, your brain fog's gone, you're sleeping better, your skin's clearing up, your digestion's great. So then that part of you starts to look for what else could I do?
Yeah. It's giving you evidence, right? Evidence to make you want more of that.
We need that. We're quite simplistic in that sense that we need that evidence, and it keeps us going. And if we try to do all of it all at once, we'll do none of it. That's what I've found.
I've been there. Totally.
All or nothing.
I'm like, I'm all in. And then it's like,
you're really all out.
Forget it. That was too hard. So
I like to use the wagon analogy with the clients. Is once they know where the wagon is, and that's what we do at the outset. Like, where is your wagon? If they fall off, that's fine. That's just human nature. Life happens. You adapt. You overcome. You get back on the wagon.
Right.
Perfection doesn't exist. We're not looking for perfection.
Yeah.
All we're looking for is that minimum, that 10% gain, can be life-changing for someone.
Yes.
So yeah, small steps done consistently.
So your mission really is just for people to feel and live the most amazing life that they can, right?
I want people to become aware of how good they could feel. And I think for a lot of people, they haven't actually experienced that, or they have at some point in their youth, and then there was a defining moment, and then their energy just fell off a cliff, and they're holding that as the place that they want to get back to. So how can I help them achieve that?
Yes. And I guess, I don't know, maybe that's why we connect like that, because that my mission is similar. You've got the tools to get them there. Mine is the awareness piece. Like, if we all just start to take a little bit more time and become aware of, like you said, what are we feeling in our body? What are the thoughts that we're thinking so often during the day that we're not aware of? The autopilot that we get ourselves in because we just don't know how to get off it. Yeah. So I think there's a real, there's a place, a sweet spot, and it's not as hard to get there as we think it is.
No, and we don't have to do it all at once.
Right. and we all deserve it, right? We all deserve to, like, we have the capabilities of living that life, and it's going to take some work because we've allowed it to get to a certain point where now we're like, I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, even if we can teach our children or teach our friends from an earlier age, oh my gosh, the world would be a different place if we all put these into practice earlier.
Yeah. I tend to see the clients come in at that point where they have had that moment where they're saying, I can't do this anymore. Something has to shift. And that's usually the point at which the right person can come in. I don't know if you've experienced that, where you're taking your hands off the wheel, you're surrendering and saying, right, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm out. Someone help me. And the right person can come in.
And they're ready. They need to be ready for it too. Yeah. Right. Because when they're ready for it, you're right. That's the old saying, the teacher appears when
the student is ready.
When the student is ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's my clients in a nutshell have usually been through all the hoop jumping that they've had to do when they've gone to see their doctor, and then this specialist and that specialist. And a lot of clients have practitioner hop as well. So they'll go to a Reiki practitioner, acupuncture, reflexology, and all those disciplines are fantastic. But if you're just jumping from one thing to the other, looking for that silver bullet, but no one's ever really joining it all together and then tying it back to see all this stress in your life, it's driving all of these symptoms. And then I can put the client into that ecosystem where, I'm side by side with them. Yeah. And then they'll get to a point where they're like, yeah, I'm good. I've got this.
Yes. And that's what you want. Mm-hmm. You don't want them to have to keep coming to you. Same with me. It's like, I don't want you to be dependent on me to keep telling you what to do. I want to give you the tools so that you can go, I don't need you anymore. It's like, that's what you want to hear as somebody who is in that space of, you just want to help them get there and then give them the tools that they can do it themselves.
Definitely.
I think what a lot of people, it takes them a long time to get there because they think they can do it on their own. Mm-hmm. And it's like, ask for help. That's another thing that we're not very good at.
No, we're not. And especially here where I live in Scotland, we have that mentality where it's, put up and shut up. Just get on with it. You don't know how lucky you are. Just get on with it. Just grin and bear it. Don't over complain. And that's not helpful because you're just burying and numbing it out, and it'll pop up somewhere else. Yeah. But the flip side of this is that 10% gain in someone's energy has a massive impact then in their life. So that 10% increase in energy, for example, goes into their business, it goes into their family.
Yes.
Suddenly their finances are better.
Yeah.
It just has that ripple effect. Their friendships are better.
Yes. Everything.
Life is easier. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think, and sometimes just pointing that piece out, right? You take time and become a bit more selfish for you. You don't realize how big of an impact that makes on everybody around you and everything that you're touching.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get off yourselves first.
Get off the struggle bus. You don't need to be on the struggle bus. You've got a choice.
Yes, you have a choice.
Yeah, asking for help is a big one, because we don't like to do that.
Yeah,
I think we see that, or we can see that as a sign of weakness, but it's definitely not.
So true. Yeah. I love it. That's why I do the podcast and the channel, is to bring people like you who are making a difference. You've seen the results. You know that this works. So, I mean, if you could get your hands on everybody, you would, because you know the difference that it's going to make in people's lives. And that's why I absolutely love having guests like you on. So if someone were to reach out, can you tell us where they can find you? And is it all one-on-one? Do you do any group? Do you have any workshops or courses people could take just to, maybe they need a step before the big step?
Yeah. So my website is gennanelson.com, and it's Genna with a G.
Okay.
My Instagram is gn.wellness.
Okay.
So I'm on there. But on my website is information around, so it's one-to-one coaching that I do. I find I get the most out of that, and my clients get the most out of that one-to-one container. So we can really, really, I like to go deep. That's my thing.
That's good. I love that.
I always caveat that with clients, like we're going deep. Obviously at the pace they're ready to go at. So we do one-to-one work. But if people want to dip their toe in the water, I do, there's a cleanse on there. So there's a 14-day cleanse. And people like that because they can just be sent a supplement box. There's a protocol, there's a meal plan. You just follow it. You've got my support. You get a support call with me, and they can just dabble in it and just see how that feels. And there's also a report. So some people just like the information, so they just want to know it in black and white. So what I'll do with that is timeline out their health history and then put it into a protocol, basically. They'll have a quick call with me and we'll run through it. But then they've got that document in black and white and they can refer to it. And then they can come back in for coaching when they're ready. So if there's something that's come out of that and they think, that's huge, I need some help, they can come in. The coaching is the main part of what I do. Yeah. That's the bit that makes the biggest difference. So I could tell you what to do. Yeah. But you ain't going to do it until you understand why. That's the case for a lot of people, and it has to be bespoke to you, because I could give you a plan for someone else and it's not relevant to you. Thank
you for clarifying that. I think you're absolutely spot on. There's information out there everywhere, and I think it might have been Tony Robbins, but they say that knowledge is potential power. Right? We can have all the knowledge in the world, but until we're actually, taking it on and doing the work. And I do really think that the one-on-one is so helpful, because again, you can pick up a book and read it, but it doesn't, there's that added bit of support that I think is going to give people the results that they really want. I mean, if they've come this far and they're dipping their toe in, it's like, just go all the way. Like, just, you're worth it. Like, people are worth it. And I think when it comes to spending money and we find things to spend money on, but it's harder to spend it on ourselves, where maybe it's not a physical thing that they're going to see right away, but the benefits are just like, I can't even I
see it as, I kind of see it as an investment. So absolutely. You don't realize that investment straight away. It's the cumulative outcome of that. And
Yes.
the other part that I love is sharing resources. So if I read a book that really resonates, or I listen to a podcast, or I meet someone, I want to tell everyone, because like, you should know about this. You know, I'm not an expert. I've had my own journey. I've done training around this and I've implemented it.
Yeah.
I can share what I've done, but I always like to share what other people have done as well, because something in that might resonate. So yeah, resources is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. That's, I mean, if you get something that good, why wouldn't you share it?
Exactly.
That's the fun part. I love that part. Well, okay. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you guys are interested in taking that next step, I would love it if you reached out, checked out what Genna had to offer. And you got the website, Genna with a G. Just make sure you remember that. Follow on Instagram. And I just thank you so much for what you're doing and what you're putting out in the world. So thank you, everybody, for being here and listening. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Genna.
Thanks, Carrie.